We are continuing on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, and we are starting Siman Resh Ayin Gimel, one of the most important areas of halacha, Kiddush B'Makom Seuda. And Maran Shulchan Aruch writes, "En Kiddush ela b'Makom Seuda." Kiddush has to be b'Makom Seuda, which is a straight Gemara from Masechet Pesachim in Perek Arbe Pesachim, the last Perek of Masechet Pesachim, Daf Kuf Aleph, and we paskin like Shmuel. Actually, very interestingly, the Ben Ish Chai writes in Parashat Bereshit, Shara Shniya, as a hakdama to Parashat Bereshit, which discusses the halachot of Kiddush and Kiddush B'Makom Seuda. He says, homiletic remez says, "En Kiddush B'Makom Seuda" means the Kedusha of a person, your holiness and attachment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is developed b'Makom Seuda. How you eat, with what kavanah you eat, how much you eat, what you eat. All of those are things that elevate what you intake in your body, really affects a person in a tremendous way. That's what the Rishonim write also, why the Isur of Dam and Cherev mentioned dozens of times in the Chumash. Because it really changes the person. The Pri Chadash writes in Hakdamat Siman Peidalet, the halachot of Tolaim in Shulchan Aruch Yoreh De'ah, that the reason that people have bad midot in our generation, he says, because people are not careful in checking for Tolaim. They end up consuming these Tolaim, subconsciously maybe even, but it changes what you intake, it changes the Kedusha of a person, it affects the person's midot, and all of that. So, very interesting, Ben Ish Chai, and Kiddush, ela b'Makom Seuda. The Kedusha comes from the way a person deals with their ma'achal, with their Seuda. Very interesting point. But in a halachic sense, says the Shulchan Aruch, the Kiddush only could be where you are going to have your Seuda. You cannot say Kiddush in one house and then listen to Kiddush in this house and then go completely 5 minutes away to a different neighborhood to your friend's Seuda and say Hamotzi without Kiddush. It doesn't work like that. When you say Kiddush, in that place you have to have Seuda as well. Now, as we will see in the Shulchan Aruch, there are several shitot that Maran Shulchan Aruch brings over here, and there is a machloket how to understand the words of Shulchan Aruch. The Rab Chaim ben Beneshli, the Knesset HaGedolah, in Shiara Knesset HaGedolah, he writes that like anywhere else, over here also, Maran, there's machloket whether or not different corners of the house are considered the same room or not, and Maran is paskening like stam, and then Yeshomrim are not necessarily the halacha, but the others hold not like this. The Ma'amar Mordechai, for instance, he holds that there are several places in Shulchan Aruch that Maran brings several different shitot in one seif, and all of them are halacha. All of them are halacha. We find this also for conduct of a person in the duration of Kriyat Torah, whether a person could turn his face away and read something else. What exactly should you be reading with them, with the Shalach Tzibur? Should you just be listening? And Maram brings 3 or 4 shitot there, and the Mamar Mordechai says that's also all of them are halacha. All the leniencies that are brought in the Shulchan Aruch over there are all halacha lemaaseh. He holds that here is the same exact story, that the different shitot that are brought in Maran are all la halacha. So let's actually read the words of the Shulchan Aruch. So En Kiddush B'Makom Seuda is a Gemara. Now what does that exactly entail? Says the Shulchan Aruch, if you are in one bayit, which really means a room, if you're in one room and you said Kiddush in that corner, even if it's a big room, and now you want to have Seuda in the other corner, that is fine. Chashuv makom echad, it's considered one place. Sheim kiddush lechol b'pinazu, if you said the Kiddush in this corner, you could have Seuda in the other corner if you change your mind from corner to corner, right? The sun in the other corner, or is in this corner, you want to run away from the sun, you want to change, there's too much noise, too much bugs, you want to go somewhere else, that's fine. It's considered Kiddush B'Makom Seuda, it's one room. Even if it's a very large simcha hall, and you're going from one corner all the way to the other opposing corner, it's fine. V'yeshomrim, says Maran. Now the Ramah in the middle over here says, if you have sukkah adjacent to your house, and you're going from the house, you can say Kiddush in the house, say eating Suda in the Sukkah. That's also considered Mipina Lepina is fine. Now, which already opens the door to a discussion of within the same house going from one room to another room, right? Is that considered also Mipina Lepina, or is that already considered Mibayit Labayit? Because the word Bayit in Shulchan Aruch is interpreted like a room as well. We see this clearly in Seif Aleph and Seif Bet of earlier on Simanim, in Siman Kuf Ayin Chet, when the Shulchan Aruch discusses the halachot of Shinui Makom. You see that there, Bayit also could mean a room, not a house. And from room to room will be actually questionable. So we'll see what that exactly entails. Says the Shulchan Aruch, V'yesh Omrim, there are those who say, and this is one of the Geonim already, the Tur brings it in the name of Rav Sar Shalom Gaon, a shita shekol haro'eh mekomo, afilu mibayit lechaser, eno tzarich lachzor ulkadesh. That b'di'evid, well, chatchila, you could say that everything has to be in the same place, but at least b'di'evid, when you go from a place to place, so long as you can see the place from where you said Kiddush, or from where you are eating Seudah, you can still see the place you said Kiddush. That visibility connects the two places together so much so that it's considered one place. It's now like the corner to corner. It becomes this. That's a shita of Rav Sar Shalom Gaon, one of the Geonim, that's brought into, as one of the shitot. Again, according to the Ma'amar Mordechai, Shulchan Aruch is paskening over here like this as well. And then a third shita that he brings, V'yesh Omrim, that is also a shita existing in the era of the Geonim. It's brought in the name of the Geonim, She'im Kidesh b'makom echad al dat lechol b'makom acher. The dat works. If you had in mind that I'm going to say Kiddush here, and I'm going to move there to say Kiddush, to say Hamotzi and eat Suda. That works, say the Geonim. So that, having in mind, saves you from a hefsek, and you could now continue your Suda in a different place. Shapir Dami. Now, all of these are discussed at length in Siman Kuf Ayin Het, in the discussions of Shinui Makom. It's a whole siman on changing place in Seudah, whether you need a new bracha, bracha achrona, bracha rishona, and so on. Which is a very important and fundamental machloked Maran and Rama over the Rama in Seif Bet. Disagrees with almost everything the Maran says in Seif Aleph. So it becomes a very complicated and very interesting sugya. One of the more complicated sugyas in the entire Shulchan Aruch Chaim is this siman. But says Maran, quantifying this chidush of Geonim, it says it can't be that you have in mind and then you just go to a completely different place. That doesn't work necessarily for you to say Kiddush here on condition, on mindset that I'm going to say Kiddush here and then I'm going to go 5 blocks away and I'm invited there for Suda. I'm going to miss their Kiddush anyways. They take a long time afterwards and so on. I'm just going to get there for Suda on time, wash Hamotzi and Chazak Baruch. Can't do that. It has to be Bebayit Echad. Now you're going from Cheder to Cheder, going from one room to another room in the same. Now Bayit here is used as a house, as real house. You have different rooms in the house, and you want to say Kiddush in one room, and eat Suda in a different room. And says the Shulchan Aruch over here, you could do that according to this Geonim, so long as it is one house and you had mindset. Now the Ben Ish Chai asks a question about the minhag that they had in Baghdad. The minhag that they had was that the women would eat separately than men. But they wanted to shmooze, they wanted to talk, men wanted to say Dvar Torah, sing, whatever it is that they wanted to do, and partially for sniut purposes because they had guests and so on and whatnot. So the way it was done was, women would come to the main dining room and they would listen to Kiddush, and after Kiddush they would go to their own room. They had a fancy room there only for women, and they would have their Seudah, singing, whatever they did, separately than men. So Ben Ish Chai says, wait a second, that's the minhag. Well, how does it work exactly? What happened with in Kiddush Makom Seudah? So he actually uses this shita of the Geonim to explain the minhag of Bavel, of the minhag of Baghdad, But nevertheless, the Shulchan Aruch says, "Kigon mecheder lecheder o me igra le'ara." You could even go from second floor in a duplex. In a duplex, there's one house, right? Not two different entities. You have a second floor. Nowadays, in the houses, the modern houses that they have, the bedrooms are upstairs, and so on. So you have kiddush in your room, and you want to come down for Suda. You had in mind that also would work. It's not a problem, and that's the third and final shita that Shulchan Aruch brings over here. Again, according to Ma'amar Mordechai, all these three are halacha. It says the Mishna Berura. How do you know that kiddush has to be b'makom? So that the Gemara darshins from the pasuk, the v'karata Shabbat oneg, that the kriyah shel kiddush, you call it Shabbat, right? When you call it a day, so to speak, right? By kiddush, kriyah shel kiddush, it has to be. And that, says the Gemara, has to be b'makom oneg, where you're having oneg, you're enjoying Shabbat, which is makom suda. So v'karata, when you call it Shabbat, when you say kiddush, the Shabbat oneg, it has to be in a makom that you have oneg, so it has to always accompany together with seuda. Sheua seuda, shamte kriya shel kiddush. That's where you want to have your kiddush. It has to be b'makom seuda, right? Now, of course, this concept is only midrabanan. It's not a biblical concept. It's a drasha, it's a asmachta, whatever. It's not a full-fledged drasha, and therefore, even though that they Gemara darshins this, right? And all of the Gedolei Rishonim bring this. Oneg Shabbat still is the Rabbanan, right? You can't learn from here that the mitzvah of Oneg Shabbat is the Oraita. It's a fair machloket whether or not how to quantify this concept of Oneg Shabbat. Where do you draw the line? Is it the Oraita? Is it the Rabbanan? And the simple answer is that the Kabbalah is not the Oraita, is still the Rabbanan, or the Kabbalah is not necessarily a full-fledged the Oraita, right? But those who hold that Oneg Shabbat is the Oraita, right? Then they would explain that the Oneg itself, that it's mentioned in the pasuk, is Mina Torah, but the Kiddush Makom Seuda is Mikoach Drasha. That is the Rabbanan. That's not even the Oraita is Midivrei Kabbalah, the maximum, right? It's not the Oraita. So this concept of Kiddush Makom Seuda is not the Oraita, is a rabbinic thing at the end of the day. So it says the Mishna Berura over here. If you have if you say in one corner and you want to move somewhere else, we of course it would work if you had in mind. That's the next shita that we're going to discuss in Shulchan Aruch. So says the Mishna Berura, אבל אם נמלך לאכול בחדר אחר או שהוא באותו בית, but if you didn't have in mind, and now you decided all of a sudden to go to a different room in the same house, you have to go back and say kiddush again, right? Because you didn't have dot, you didn't have mindset to say it here. So this actually happens to be, for instance, you go in a room, and then all of a sudden you realize that this room has a problem, or someone turns off the light, and now there's no light there, right? So you were in one room, and now someone changed the setting. The kid came and turned off the light, and you need now to go to the kitchen, to a different room. You would need to say a new kiddush because you didn't have mind to be yotze according to this shita, right? Now, when Shulchan Aruch says "Bait lesukkah," the Rama writes, "Kegon she'ardu geshamim." surprise, you setting up in sukkah, right? This happened actually last year, I think. People said kiddush. Some people managed to have also kazayit, right? And then it started raining. When it rains, you're patur from sukkah, nikra idiot, you have to go in. So says the Gemara, says the Mishna Berura, in such a case, you go back in, or reversed. You said it was raining, so you said kiddush at home, and then you go to wash in Tel Tadayim, and the kids look outside and say, oh, no more rain, it's clear, you can come back out. So you have to go back, of course, and eat Suda in the Sukkah. Pasku HaGeshamim, ורוצה לאכול בסוכה. You want to eat in the Sukkah, והוא הדין להפך. In both cases, בכל זה אין צריך לקדשן. You don't have to say another kiddush in this case, because the Sukkah is considered מפינה לפינה. Right? What now? Says the Mishna Berura, it's very important to note that this is not all the sukkahs that we have nowadays. The sukkah is inside your house. Right? That one of the rooms you took the ceiling off, right? There is no other wall aside from the wall that makes the sukkah kasher. That's all is between you and the sukkah and the house. It's mamash adjacent to the house. That's what we're talking about, right? For instance, it would be like a balcony that runs into your kitchen, or runs into your deck, that runs into your living room. So mamash is adjacent to your house. Because the wall is there only for mitzvah sukkah, it's not there as a wall. That's considered already one corner to another corner. It's a very unlikely scenario for nowadays, because even the balconies, they have their own sliding door, they have their own walls. It's not necessarily going to be this reality of the Shulchan Aruch over here. So says the Mishna Berura, Shkol sheroeh mekomo. There are those who say, this is again the Shita of Sashal Garwood, that holds that as long as you have visibility to your original place, it's considered connected. Shekevan sheachol b'mkom ha'seuda lirot makom shekiddush. Where you're sitting to eat, you could see the place that you said kiddush. The places are connected. Afilu derech chalon, afilu rak miktzat mekomo. Even if you could see partially the place that you were before for kiddush, he considers the entire place to be connected and be considered one halachic place. Afilu mibayit lechatzer, and the Shita of the Geonim brought at the end of the Shulchan Aruch that even from house to the chatzer you could go when you had that, or again, this is the mibayit lechatzer is still discussing Rav Sar Shalom Gaon. That the visibility would allow you to go even from bayit to chaser. Here, would say even bayit to bayit, even if you're going to a neighbor, or you could mamash see their place from your place of kiddush, it's still considered the same place. So long as there's no road in between the two houses. If the places are mamash adjacent, even though that it's considered a different domain, with you seeing and having visibility is considered the same place, and you're good to go from kiddush to suda, going to your neighbor even, if you could see the place from your area of kiddush. Now, says the Shulchan Aruch at the end, be very careful, bayit lebayit. You have to ask a she'ela, because it's one little detail could change the entire thing, right? You don't want to be mekel just with seeing it. There are many achronim who are machmir, so therefore it says the Mishna Berura, be careful not to rely on just visibility when you talk about different houses. So that's not something that necessarily would be viable in halakha to be relied upon. So therefore, one should ask a question when it comes to that scenario. Says the Says the Mishna Berura. Well, that really concludes the first Seif. But we still have to discuss a little bit of the discussions of having on rooftop, coming down in the sukkah, and so on, which Be'ezrat Hashem will continue the discussion in the days to come. Hazaku Baruch.